I've made a video on a case where a woman killed her daughter-in-law. In that case, the woman killed her daughter-in-law because her daughter-in-law wanted a divorce. The case I am going to talk about today is also a case where a woman killed her daughter-in-law, but the reason she killed was that she couldn't stand that her son and her daughter-in-law loved each other so much. At around 9 o'clock on February 16th, 2016, a woman in Sixty City called the police to report that there was a dead body in the community where she lived. When the police arrived at the scene, they found a female body lying on the ground. After requiring onlookers, the police learned that the deceased was Gao Yang, a 34-year-old nurse who lived in this community. The time of death was around 6 a.m. at that time. Some neighbors heard someone shouting for help, but then there was no sound. On that day, Gao was supposed to go to work in the hospital, but she never showed up again. Gao, born in 1982, had a loving husband and a 4-year-old son. Her husband, Wu Yuan, often expressed his love for her. Just a few days before the incident, he posted a message saying, "Sweetheart, I love you to the moon and back." Despite the happiness of their small family, Wu's mother strongly opposed their relationship from the beginning. Wu's mother, Zhang Yunying, was born in 1957. She was given away to a middle-aged couple by her parents because they couldn't afford to have one more child. The good thing is her adoptive parents treated her very well. When she was 20 years old, her adoptive father passed away. At the age of 25, she got married, and her husband was a factory director. In 1982, she gave birth to her son, Wu Yuan. However, Zhang and her husband had a bad relationship and often argued. According to their neighbors, her husband often went out for a walk alone to avoid arguing with her. The unhappy marriage made Zhang put all her heart into her son, Wu. She checked up on his studies and took care of his everyday life, closely accompanying her son as he grew up, even going so far as to prevent her husband from spending too much time with him. Her son was the pillar of her life. In 2000, Wu was about to graduate from high school and faced the question of which university to choose. Zhang asked him not to choose a university in a province outside of their home. Wu eventually enrolled in a university about 2.5 hours away from home, studying mechanical drawing. However, Zhang still felt that Wu was too far away from her and cried for several days. After graduation, Wu returned to his hometown as his mother wished and worked as an engineer in a construction company. Later, his mother bought him a condo near his company. In Zhang's heart, her son is perfect. Wu once had a girlfriend who was a teacher, and the two were engaged. However, during the renovation of the condo that Zhang bought for Wu, Zhang had constant conflicts with Wu's girlfriend. Eventually, the wedding was cancelled, and they broke up. Luckily, 1 year later, Wu met Gao Yang, a mature, warm, positive girl. He once told his friends that Gao was the love of his life, and he would not break up with her because of his mother for any reason. However, in Zhang's eyes, Gao was full of shortcomings. She believed that Gao was too old for his son. In fact, Gao and Wu were the same age. Zhang also thought that Gao was short, had a poor job, and it was a downside that she didn't have siblings. All these so-called shortcomings were unacceptable to Zhang. I'll explain why being the only child is also a bad thing in Zhang's opinion. After Zhang's adoptive father passed away, she needed to shoulder the responsibility of taking care of her adoptive mother all by herself. Her adoptive mother was in poor health, so Zhang let her live in Zhang's home for convenience. But Zhang's husband was unwilling to have her adoptive mother living in their home, which made their house always messy. Therefore, Zhang had many arguments with her husband. Later, Zhang asked her adoptive mother to move out. This made Zhang think that Gao would also bear the responsibility of taking care of her parents as the only child, which would burden Wu. Zhang had been trying to break up their relationship, but Wu and Gao were deeply in love, and eventually the two got married and moved into the 2-bedroom condo Zhang bought for Wu. Zhang only agreed Wu to marry Gao on one condition, that she would live with them after they got married. After the wedding, she immediately sold her old house and moved into her son's condo with her husband. Although her husband was reluctant, he couldn't oppose her, so they lived together with their son and daughter-in-law. This lifestyle put a lot of pressure on Gao. In addition to the differences in living habits between the two generations, Zhang always found fault with Gao and liked to dig at her. According to reports, once Gao and Wu were taking a footbath in the same basin at home, Zhang ridiculed Gao that she was shameless for being too intimate with her husband in front of the eldership. Besides that, Zhang was always hogging the TV. She liked to watch traditional operas, but Wu and Gao preferred watching TV dramas. She ignored their needs and always occupied the TV to watch opera. She also required Wu to watch it with her together. Even after Gao and Wu's son was born, this situation didn't improve. Once, when Wu was away on business for several days, Zhang insisted that her bracelet was missing and that Gao must have stolen it. Gao tried to defend herself, but it was useless. Zhang even called Gao's parents. Although Gao's parents didn't believe that their daughter stole the bracelet, they still went to the store and bought a new one for Zhang in an attempt to resolve the conflict. Later, Wu found Zhang's missing bracelet under a cabinet. However, Zhang didn't apologize to Gao or her parents, nor did she return the bracelet they purchased for her. What's worse, as a nurse, Gao often had to work night shifts. Whenever Gao was not at home, Zhang slept in Wu's room on the pretext of taking care of her grandson. This allowed her to feel that her son still belonged only to her. However, a year before the incident, due to a job transfer, Gao no longer worked night shifts, which gave her and Wu more time to spend together. Neighbors often saw the couple taking a walk hand in hand after dinner, and they seemed very affectionate. Zhang was so upset that she went to the hospital where Gao worked and asked Gao's supervisor to adjust her back to work night shifts. This incident caused a conflict that existed only within the family to spread to the workplace. Gao's friend once said that Gao had made a lot of efforts to ease the relationship with Zhang, such as buying clothes and gifts for her, but nothing had worked. Gao's patience was due to her love for Wu, and perhaps also because she was busy at work and needed Zhang's help taking care of her child. Fortunately, Wu was very good to Gao. He shared housework, took care of their child, and occasionally bought her gifts, such as designer bags and shoes to make her happy. One day, when Zhang was arguing with her husband, Gao heard a shocking secret. In order to get rid of the burden, Zhang secretly poisoned her adoptive mother, causing her death. This secret made Gao terrified, so she told her parents about it. Unexpectedly, her father had already heard the rumor that Zhang had poisoned her adoptive mother. But he didn't tell Gao because he was worried that speaking out would affect their marriage, so he kept it hidden. Then, Gao decided to move out because of this, and Wu supported her decision. In August 2015, the two spent about 400,000 yuan, or about $60,000, on buying a small condo. They planned to move into this condo with their children after renovating it. After Zhang learned of their decision to move out, she reacted very strongly. She even told her neighbors that she would kill Gao one day. But this didn't stop Gao and Wu from moving out. Around January 2016, before the Chinese Lunar New Year, Wu and Gao moved with their son to their new condo. During the Chinese New Year holiday, Wu and Gao went on a trip, and Wu frequently posted photos of them having fun. Zhang was furious when she saw those photos, and the idea of making Gao completely disappear that had been lingering in her mind was ignited. In February, Zhang found a 40-year-old man named Zhang Yunying, whom she had met when she was jogging in the park a few years ago. She repeatedly mentioned to him that she wanted to hire someone to kill Gao. Zhao introduced his 23-year-old cousin Shen to Zhang. Eventually, Zhang agreed to pay 150,000 yuan to hire Shen to kill Gao. She paid a deposit of 50,000 yuan first, about $7,000. She also gave him an extra 2,000 yuan to buy an electric bike, knives, gloves, and other tools to facilitate the crime. After discussing it, they decided to disguise it as a robbery and murder so that Zhang would not be suspected. On February 16th, around 5 a.m., Zhang went to the community where Gao lived with Shen and hid downstairs. At first, Shen refused Zhang to go with him because he had already been looking around in this community for 3 days, but Zhang was worried that he would mistake someone else for Gao and insisted on going. After Gao walked out of the building to go to work, Zhang hurriedly urged Shen to act. Then he came forward with a knife, stabbed Gao in the stomach, and ran away. When Zhang saw this, she walked to Gao and stabbed her several times more. Then Zhang dragged the dying Gao aside, covered her with an abandoned big piece of wood, and cleaned up the bloodstains on the scene. After committing the crime, Zhang went upstairs to Gao's home, woke up her grandson, and took him to the grocery store to buy food as usual. An hour later, a woman found Gao's body. Although Zhang and Shen planned to fake a robbery scene, they didn't take away Gao's belongings, so the police quickly ruled out robbery and murder. After reviewing the on-site surveillance and interviewing surrounding residents, Shen quickly came into the police's sight. Late that night, Shen was intercepted by the police at the toll station on the highway. After being arrested, he immediately confessed everything, and Zhang was also arrested by the police soon. According to reports, she said this: "I am so sorry for my good son, but it was his father's behavior that caused me to do this. It is my fault that my son is going to lose me." The police also interrogated Zhang's husband at that time because of what she said. Judging from the comprehensive information, it was clear that he didn't participate in the case and didn't know about it in advance. Zhang's words seem more like an attempt to shirk responsibility. Zhang also said, "I feel sorry for Gao's parents, but I didn't like Gao, and she was still marrying my son. Who can understand my feelings?" After Wu had been questioned at the police station, he walked past Zhang, who was going to the bathroom in handcuffs. He didn't even look at her. On October 24, 2016, Zhang was sentenced to death for hiring the murderer and personally participating in the crime, while Shen was sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve for intentional homicide. Zhao was sentenced to 8 years in prison for participating in the intermediary. In addition, Wu, as the victim's family member, together with his son and parents-in-law, filed a civil compensation claim against the 3 defendants, including his mother. Wu's move shows his attitude of cutting ties with his mother completely.